what really like exploded us in popularity was one of our new Street Fighter 6 players. He was a journalist for the Anchorage Daily News.
Oh,
And he's like, Banky, is it cool if I do a piece on the tournament, Monday Night Combat? I was like, yeah, of course. So, he came and interviewed. I thought it was just going to be like a small thing, but like all of Anchorage saw it. Everyone I ran into that I knew, they're like, Banky, I saw your video game thing in the newspaper, man. That's really cool.
that's so
And then,
cool.
we got a lot of like new people on Discord asking like, hey, how do I get to this Thai restaurant place? I want to come play Guilty. I want to come play Street Fighter, blah, blah, blah. So.
Hello, and welcome to the Absolute Guard Podcast. We're a competitive fighting game community podcast examining history and current events from the lens of the Arizona grassroots scene.
Yes, welcome. This is episode 67. My name is Benny, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, John. And today, we have a special guest today, one of my good friends in the scene, Mr. Banksters, a.k.a. Banky. How's it going, Banky?
Guys? Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. Really glad to be here.
Thanks for being on.
Yeah, typically we start out with a little bio episode about you and kind of like your origins in the fighting game community. I want to take a couple minutes, kind of set the stage here, because like I've talked about my origin story in this before and how I got started playing competitively in Alaska. I heard about a Street Fighter tournament back in 2009 when I was driving to work on the radio. I heard about this place called Friendly Fire, decided to look up their website. On their website, on the homepage, like right in the middle of the page is just a picture. I didn't know anybody in there, but I recognized one person's face, and that was somebody that worked at FedEx. Is this guy named Anthony. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to find this guy. I'm going to introduce myself, whatever. I shot the shit with him and, asked him about the tournament. He's like, yeah, it's pretty cool. And this is the guy that won the last tournament, and it was Banky. And I was just like, so you're going to go to the next one? He's like, yeah. So I went there. Didn't really have, I was kind of excited because I didn't think anybody in Alaska was playing Street Fighter at the time. I thought I was like the only guy out there. Like, I don't know, maybe I was just super naive or whatever, but I thought I was the only guy in Alaska playing Street Fighter. And I go out and, meet this community out there, meet a bunch of the guys. Some of the guys are in the chat here, like Milo. And at that tournament, I actually ended up beating Banky. So he's been literally part of the first step of my fighting game community journey. And I ended up getting second place at that tourney. But since then, I've been involved with their scene basically since I left there in 2012, and we've been good friends and rivals and everything like that since then. Had a lot of good memories. I'm sure that I'll get brought up here as we talk or whatnot. But yeah, that's my little spiel there. But yeah, he's literally been present since the first day I got into the competitive fighting game scene, which I think is pretty cool. And we've just been rivals, and one tournament he'll beat my ass, the next tournament I'll beat him, and like he doesn't really say anything afterwards. He just like sticks his hands out, he just shakes it. Win or lose, it's always the same kind of like, here you go. And then kind of like the it is on thing, and I'm just like, all right, man, like you got me this time. Yeah, so anyway, let's start a little bit about with you, Banky. Just kind of like the origin of your gamer tag and where that started from with Banksters.
Yeah, so Banksters. Growing up, I had a good family friend. He would always just come over to the house. He's like Banky, and then like he would just like say my name in different weird ways, like Bazanky or Bazinga or stuff like that, right? And then the one that stuck was he sung it to the theme of the I think it was the Jetsons theme song or something, or the Flintstones, whatever. He's like, Banksters, meet the Banksters, right? And that's the one that just stuck in my head since I was like 5 years old. Yeah, so through all my like edgy gamer tags that I try to come up with in middle school, none of those stuck. And I was like, what, Banksters is the solid one to go with. So
yeah. Well, I mean, it goes with the name too, right? It's just
exactly,
one of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Well, okay, so in terms of like fighting games and stuff like that, I know you got a pretty big history when it comes to that. But what's your first recollection of like fighting games and stuff that you remember playing?
My first recollection of fighting games. So for some reason, my very first memory of fighting games is Pocket Fighter on the PlayStation 1. Ooh, I just have like vivid memories of mashing on a PS1 pad with like Ibuki and stuff in that game. And I was just like, whoa, there's like gems popping out, and like these little characters are kids like me, right? And they're doing cool stuff and all that. And then yeah, I have 3 brothers. 2 of them are really competitive gamers. So I got brought up, in that environment. We always had to one up each other. So yeah, I grew up playing a lot of Pocket Fighter, and then I switched into Tekken from there. Played a lot of Tekken 3 as a kid. Was never good at it. Again, it was just real mashy, but I had fun just like doing cool things with Eddie Gordo, and as everybody does. And yeah, the rest is history from there. So.
Eddie Gordo Tekken 3, man. That I remember when that came out, like my best friend, I was like, they were having like a house party or something, and they had that game, and like I was playing Eddie Gordo too, and like I was literally just mashing the kicks and break dancing all over the place, and nobody could beat me, and like people were so mad. Like I had like a 30-game win streak, and they're just like, somebody needs to beat him so he can shut the hell up. And I was like,
it's funny.
Yeah,
it's funny because every fighting game has that character that it's just like you use your right hand to mash buttons and the character does stuff. Like Eddie Gordo is one. Killick from Soul Calibur is another one. I see people use a lot of. Honda as well because you want to mash hands, right? I'm trying to think of other ones, but you get my
yeah, and I think Eddie's like the guy, right? Even if you talk to people that don't play fighting games seriously, it's like, oh yeah, I played a little Eddie in Tekken back in the day. I was pretty good at that game.
I think he's the prime example. And so it's just like Eddie's so cheap, and I'm just like, oh my god, you just roll your eyes. Especially nowadays, like us all being competitive and stuff now, just like cheap. Like, come on, dude. It's like,
yeah, just block, dude. How do I do that? Right?
So you mentioned Puzzle Fighter as your first kind of like foray into fighting games. What about in terms of like competitively? What was your first like competitive game? When did you start that part of you?
Competitively, so it was kind of embarrassing. I was like getting into like actual Street Fighter, so like Alpha 3 and stuff, when I want to say like 11 or 12, but I thought Third Strike and Alpha 3 were the same games. And like I watched the Daigo parry, right? And I was like, dude, that's so cool. I want to play this Street Fighter. So I bought Alpha 3. I booted it up. I was like, I think this might be the same. And this kind of looks different. I don't know. But then finally the next year, my friend got me Anniversary Collection. And I was like, oh, this is the game that Daigo is playing. Okay.
Yeah, you were playing it for a whole year. You didn't know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Eventually, after like 3 months, I figured it out. I was like, okay, I'm just an idiot. All right.
Did you like go to GameStop and like you were like, give me Street Fighter, and then they just gave you the first one they saw?
No, because like I remember I was like, there was a 3 in the title, right? And then Alpha 3 has a huge 3 on the cover. Yeah. So I was like, that one. That's the one that the Japanese guy online did the cool thing.
That's awesome. Nice. I had a similar origin where my first fighting game, I'm like, I want to play the Street Fighter game, and then I ended up with Capcom Fighting Jam.
Oh no!
So I went to GameStop and I was like, I want the latest Street Fighter. I don't want the old ones, and they gave me Capcom Fighting Jam.
I feel like at least at that point you had nothing to compare it to, though, right? It's like, oh, this is kind of cool. Right?
Well, it was extra confusing because it was like that game featured all these other like games for like characters from other Street Fighters, right? So you're like, oh, this is the Street Fighter 2 characters. Here's the 3 Third Strike characters. So I was like, oh, this must be what everyone's playing because it's got everything. And that's good, right?
I'm just thinking of those situations where like the parent goes into the store and like doesn't know the name of the exact thing of what they're looking for, then they just walk out with something else, and you're like, yeah, what's this, Mom? Like, what?
Can I get Grand Theft Auto Modern Warfare, please?
So that, or you know how there's a GameStop, like it'll always be like that person will always give a recommendation too, like, oh, you don't want to get that, you'll get this instead.
Yeah,
it's like, oh man.
So first game is Alpha 3 at home. Were you playing on pad or stick, or like what kind of?
I started off with pad. We always had those, like just like real wonky bad Mad Cats back in the day. Like the stick was like a foot tall and the buttons were like the size of your hand, right? So,
yep, lots of dead zones in it, right?
Yep.
Nice. Do you still play on pad nowadays, or did you end up switching eventually, or?
So I switched to stick when I was 14, so like a couple years after I started actually trying to play. The first stick that I got was the MAS stick. It was the American sticks they made back in the day.
Yeah.
And I didn't know any better because that's what I played on whenever I went to the arcade. That's all we had. And then playing Third Strike on that was terrible because there's no corners on American sticks. It's just a circle gate. So I ate a lot of lows in that game when I was starting out. But yeah.
Yeah, for our listeners, a lot of people I think are they want that old school arcade feel on the Sanwa joysticks that are standard, and they oftentimes get an octo gate to compensate for that. But the stick that Banky's talking about is the Moss stick is a perfect 360, so it's just no corners whatsoever, right?
Yeah, and then it's really heavy, so you had to use your whole arm to move that thing. It was crazy. I got to work out while playing. So.
Yeah, so you mentioned arcades. Like, what was the arcade that you frequented in Alaska there?
So the Alaskans watching, you guys will remember Space Station. It was on this really sketchy road we have here called Spinard Road, and basically it's just all crackheads and prostitutes, right? But my parents, they're just like, oh, we'll take you to the arcade after school. They dropped me off. I was like 8 years old. There's a bunch of just bums hanging out in the arcade. I was like, oh, this is fun. And I played mostly Tekken 4 and DDR over there, and that was actually the start of my competitive gaming, was music games.
Nice. Who was the one that we had on the show that was talking about that, John? Who was playing Guitar Hero? I remember there was somebody that talked about that.
It might have been Lorenzo, but there was definitely like an overlap between like competitive fighting gamers and competitive rhythm gamers. I've noticed.
Yeah,
I think that's the pipeline, right, from music games to fighting games usually. So
yeah, you get the games. Yeah, Space Station. Like, I didn't really frequent that place at all until I was like, I mean, I didn't even frequent it when I was older, but I didn't really go there until I was much older. And then, because I was kind of from the east side of Anchorage, so I'd be at like the malls and stuff like that. That was really the place that I played.
mm-hmm.
And then when I found out about that place, I was just like, oh man, this place has been here, but it was like Banky said, it was kind of in a sketchy place of town. So it's just like my parents were kind of a little overprotective about stuff like that. Like, if I was going to say I was going to go out to the arcade, he was going to be like, where are you going? How long are you going to be there? Who are you going to be with? And if I mentioned anything about like Spinard or there's other places in Anchorage, like Mountain View or something, he'd be like, you don't need to be around those areas of town. And I'm just like, well, you know what? It's just better off that I don't even ask you. So that's why I never really went there.
Yeah, to add to the sketchiness, what got that place shut down was someone got murdered right outside the entrance.
Yeah.
So after that, they're like, no more arcade.
Yeah, someone got shot out there, and then it was a few. I want to say it was a few months, and then they just like, we're shutting down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's a hell of an opener.
Hey, you hear about? I don't know what it was related to. I don't think it was related to games. I mean, hopefully it wasn't related to games, but
there was a Marvel 2 cab in there, so.
Oh man. Yeah, someone locked the game up or something with the Gambit.
Yeah.
Infinite.
I wanted to ask, like just to get an idea of like the vibe for that arcade. Was there like a competitive tournament scene there, or was it mainly just like everyone kind of congregating and playing the games?
So when I was playing there, I was still pretty young, so I don't have like a vivid memory of what kind of like competitive events they had. But from what I remember, they had tournaments for DDR because I played in a couple of those. I think they did do fighting games tournaments too, and then I think they did like monthly tournaments or something for the fighting games from what I remember. So.
Is anybody like from that era still in the Alaska fighting game community today?
Only a couple. A lot of the old heads moved out of town or just don't play games anymore. We have one guy that grew up playing in that arcade, Josh Myth. He was pretty big. Yeah, Benny, JTM. I guess he was pretty big in the Tekken scene, and a lot of the top players know him and stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot about Tekken. So if you could, like, is Alaska known for like a specific game? Is Tekken kind of the deal there, or is the scene kind of more mixed?
It kind of changes on depending on what game's popular, right? So back in the day, I think it was Tekken for like a long time. We didn't really have a Street Fighter scene here, or at least I didn't know about it. And then in the Street Fighter 4 days, I think we were known as the Street Fighter guys because we had Weirder Neo. He was from here, right? So that he kind of put us on the map, and then now we're just we kind of fell off in relevancy after that.
Yeah, that was, what was it, 2010, right? That's when he got like tied for 13th that year.
Yeah, that was his first Evo.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for those of you that don't remember, like, Weird Neo, he's Korean. He played Jury at the time. Like his big thing, like I mentioned it on the show before, was like during Evo he ended up playing Tatsu from SoCal, who was playing Vega. And the SoCal players, especially early in the Street Fighter 4 days, just notorious for being good players, right? So to have this kind of unknown player show up and then beat him, and like the one thing that got everybody hyped was that it was a stream match, and Neo had knocked him down, and then he did like Jury's taunt where she like puts her hands behind her head and she's like waving her hips, and that just got people hyped. Yeah, and that just got people hyped. I remember being at home and I'm just like, oh my god, I can't believe he just did that to Tatsu of all people. And like that was his coming out party, and like for kind of our scene at the time.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
then
I mean,
he had another round against Ryan Hart too, and then he beat him. And we're like, dude, you beat Ryan Hart, and then he comes up to us and he's like, who is that? We're like, oh,
some British guy.
yeah, don't worry about him.
Some Tekken player.
Yeah.
Yeah, like from my vantage point as somebody not from Alaska, like I remember Weirdo Neo being like the first jury, both that character being brand new in Super Street Fighter 4 and no one knowing how to play that character at a high level. He was literally the first one. And like I think later on in the game's life cycle, like I was came onto the scene, but by and large that character was relatively unknown or obscure in the entirety of Street Fighter 4. So it's kind of a landmark for the character and for the player, I think.
Yeah, and it was awesome too because like Alaska definitely, I think we were like one of the few scenes that knew the jury matchup, like
Sure,
fully. So like we didn't lose to any juries except Weirdo Neo, so it was a good resource to have.
Yeah. So in the chat here, there's a mention that was a golden era of Alaska fighting games, and so I kind of want to see if we can capture the feel of when Street Fighter 4 came out. Like, what was that like in Alaska? Like, how did the Street Fighter guys, like that scene form that you mentioned earlier?
So like Benny was saying, it was kind of a like, oh, I didn't know anybody else played Street Fighter in Alaska. Up until Street Fighter 4, that was the case, right? It was just like me, my brothers, and a couple friends. There was like 6 of us playing Third Strike, and it never got any really bigger than that. And then we did that first Street Fighter 4 tournament that Benny mentioned, put posters everywhere, and that got like 30 entrants or something. We're like, oh wow, there's people that want to play Street Fighter in Anchorage. That's really cool. Yeah. And then after those first 2 tournaments, it just like, more people started getting interested in fighting games. And I think like that was the same time that the first streams started happening for Street Fighter as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And then so Street Fighter got really big, and then more people like, oh, I want to try this game. And we just started having like weekly tournaments and stuff. Benny, you remember the Ranbats that we did at Friendly Fire?
Yeah. I've talked about that in the past, like when we started the Ranbats at Play and Trade, because like at that first tournament, like after I beat you, I lost to Johnny Zangief. Like I didn't know how to, like I'm glad that there's not footage from that time, because like I'm pretty sure like we were just doing shit, man. Because I remember I was just sumo smashing all over the place and headbutting, and I remember I think it was your reaction too, like when I did like a sumo smash and armor break, like everybody was just like, that armor breaks? And I was just like, I was kind of just like laughing. And I was just like, yeah, like, I didn't know anything about the game at the time, but like, yeah, after I got that second place, like, I walked out there all happy with my $50 or whatever. And I'm just like, oh, sweet. There's a scene here. And, hopefully they do more things. And then when we started those Ranbats at the play and trade in Diamond, like I got humbled hard. Like I was going like 0-2 like every time. I was losing to like everybody. I was like, man, I suck. I was just like, maybe was that a fluke or whatever? Like, I was questioning like everything I was doing, and I was like, I gotta get, I gotta level up. And yeah, that was a crazy time, because like Banky said, like that's when the streams, like that's when I first heard about like Devastation and stuff happening in Arizona of all places, right? And then the Evo streams, like that moment with Neo in 2010. Like I had no clue what Evo was prior to 09, and then watching those 2 years of streams, that's what eventually catapulted me into going to my first Evo in 2011. And yeah, we had a real big group come down from Alaska that year.
Oh, before we get to 2011, I had one last question about 2009. So Benny always tells that story about how he heard the ad on the radio. How the hell did you guys get on the radio?
So that wasn't our group that did that. There was a place very close to that old sketchy arcade that I was mentioning.
Yeah.
It was another like Friendly Fire was tiny at that time, right, Benny?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a guy. They owned this business called Friendly Fire. It was like a LAN center, really tiny, kind of ghetto. You have like 6 Xbox 360s in there. We later found out that the owner was a drug kingpin, and he was just using the business as a front to like
Holy
launder money. So
Yeah.
that aside, we'll get into more of that later. This guy had a lot of money. Let's just say that. So he could pay for all the advertisements, and yeah, they're like, oh, Street Fighter tournament, you know. So
Yeah.
Wow.
It's like,
yeah, yep.
was that really him in the very beginning too? Like, I don't even remember who was like running that place in the beginning, but
It might not have been, but regardless, it ended up that way.
that's right. That's right.
right.
Yeah, I think like the last I saw, he was actually in jail in Arizona of all things. So I was just like, oh, he's in Tucson. I was like, oh shit, it's come full circle, guys.
You come for the focus attacks and you stay for the cocaine.
Yeah.
No, I remember the one thing I remember from that first tournament I went to is like, I think when we got to like the winners losers grand finals, is we didn't even play next to each other. We were playing like online in like a split setup. Like there was the entrance door, and on the left side there was one system. I think that's where Banky was, and then on the right side of the door there was another system, and that's where I was. And I was just like, we're gonna play online against each other, just like, yeah, we're just gonna do that because it's more spectator friendly or whatever. And I was just like, okay. So that was kind of a funny way to have things set up of all things.
It was a Street Fighter 4 netcode, so even though we were sitting, next to each other, there was like still a couple frames of delay in there, so it was real janky. But.
Yeah. Oh man, those were some times, man.
And it's funny that you like said that you were sumo slamming whatever, because like I remember after shaking your hand, I didn't say anything. I was like, I don't know this guy. Good games. I went home. I was like, this guy is so fucking random. He's just head slamming and headbutting me, dude. And I like practiced the Honda matchup so much after.
Yeah, I remember that's what Anthony said. The guy that I had befriended at FedEx when he was there, because he was the only guy that I was talking to at that tournament. And I remember what was his name that was playing Sagat there? Derek.
Derek. Yeah.
He was on the side. Like, here's this guy that like. He was notorious for just being like, I don't know, just in the lab execution wise. Like, he was one of like the better players there. And like, I remember I was up next to play that guy, and Anthony's in my ear, and he's just like, aren't you gonna practice? And like Derek's over there on his pad, just in trading mode doing Sagat combos, and I'm like, this guy doesn't know how I play. And then I just like walk through him, and like same thing, doing random shit, and I was like, this guy doesn't know how to deal with me. So I was like, kind of had this like weird kind of confidence going on at that time, because I was just like, none of these guys know me. But at the same time, I didn't know what the hell I was doing either. So,
so 2010, 2009, Street Fighter 4 comes out, blows up the Alaska scene. 2010, Neo does great at Evo, and so it puts the Alaska scene on the map. 2011, Alaska comes out in full force to Vegas. That's the timeline I've got in my head right now. So around 2011, my understanding is that's when AE came out. Street Fighter 4 AE came out, and I was curious about were arcades dead for you guys at that time, or did you guys get an arcade edition cabinet or anything like that?
So arcades were very dead here. They probably died off in the mid 2000s. I want to say
so
like 2006, 2007. Yeah, they were just gone. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All consoles at that point, and what was it?
I'd have to agree, because like I think a lot of the malls and stuff even shut down, because I think at that time that's when like the main one that was in like the Diamond Center even got converted into like a food court, because that was one of the ones on that side of town, like the south side of town, that had a lot of like the obscure fighting games. That's the one that I mentioned in the past, where it's like I'd walk in and there'd be like Soul Edge on the side, or like Ultimate Mortal Kombat versus 3, and like there'd be all these like new fighting games that would come out, and then eventually like they just ended up kind of like just taking that out entirely, and then it was like a couple new like restaurants that were put down there.
Yeah, and they started converting our arcades to like what Dave and Buster's is now. So you started to see less and less video games. You saw ticket games, sports games and stuff. So yeah, real sad. Did you guys have any cabs in Arizona around that time, or?
We did. That's like that actually just put a bunch of like context on here how spoiled we were. We had a vanilla Street Fighter 4 cab. So like everyone talks about 09ers, right? But like that cab was out in 2008, and so to hear that Alaska didn't get any cabs whatsoever means that one, you guys had no experience with Street Fighter at launch, and then two, the competition that you guys were playing against at Evo and whatnot had already been playing the game for a year. So good, nice job being able to catch up.
Yeah, and then we definitely like a few of us traveled to go try AE when it came out. It was like me, Neo, a couple other people.
Nice.
But yeah, we weren't fortunate enough to have a AE cab here, so
okay. So you waited for the console release then to get fucked by Yun.
Yep.
Sounds like.
Yeah. No, to pick up Yun. So.
Hell yeah, I like Yun.
Yun and Fei Long, man, that was the year.
Oh man.
Most dry Evo finals ever.
I just remember all those people that like, sitting in that audience for the first time, and I'm just like, another Fei Long, huh? And it's just like some random guy, and just like, oh, we don't even know who this guy is. His records all over the screen and focus attacks are just like,
That is fascinating because that from the Alaska perspective, from the Arizona perspective, that was one of the most hype Evos because Latif got second that year, and Latif was from Arizona.
Oh, so, I forgot he was from Arizona. Yeah.
We kind of like switched places, I guess, because we didn't really have anything going on super in or during Super. So
right.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah. So then AE comes out, then 2012 balances it out again, and then eventually Ultra comes out. Any huge milestones for the Street Fighter Alaska scene during that time?
Whatever the opposite of a milestone is, it kind of died during AE because like everyone was hating on the game here. There was only like a few of us that still were playing.
That's when Cross Tekken came out too.
Yeah, Cross Tekken came out.
Cross Tekken came out. Yeah.
Everyone was playing Marvel instead at that time.
Oh yeah, Marvel 3.
Yeah. That's what Marvel was. That's basically the time when I started hosting stuff too. Was basically like 2011. Like I brought that up in the past, but a lot of that was stemmed from like being at a tournament, and like the scene was like small and kind of tight knit, so everybody was just cool with each other, right? And it's just like it got to the point to where like our tournaments were taking forever because people would go get food. Hey man, I'll be back, and then we just hold up the bracket for them until they got back. Hey, where's so and so? An hour passes by. Oh, he's coming back. Somebody reach out to him, and like our tournaments would just take forever. And I'm just like, there's like 18 people here. I was just like, we shouldn't be running for 4 hours. Like, what the hell? Like my wife was getting upset. She's just like, why is this taking so long? You guys, So that kind of where all that kind of stemmed up. And I started hosting was because of that. And yeah, we had a little bit of drama in terms of like running on time, like that first thing. It involved Neo. Like I won't really get into that. I mean, if anything, I ended up being called Grandmaster C- amongst all that mess. But it eventually kind of all leveled itself out once we kind of all got on the same page. Because like, I'm pretty sure I think it was Banky also that was kind of talking about that, because I was just like, it's disrespectful to the people that are coming here on time and spending their time here and wanting to play games, and then also like go home at a reasonable time too, right? And it's just like it's all fun and games, and like we're all buddy in a way, but it's like we're also kind of wasting each other's times too, and kind of like taking advantage of it.
Yeah, it kind of when the scene is small and close knit enough, I think like the norms get relaxed a little bit for tournaments, so it makes sense that you took the scene Hollywood, Benny. It sounds like.
Yeah, it almost kind of reminds me of here, like when we were doing the Hasbats here, like there was definitely a lot more of a kind of like a chummy buddy feel, right? And like a lot of people were just kind of laid back, and I was just like, it's kind of like that.
We weren't esports yet.
Okay. I was just looking at somebody in the chat that says, "Don't y'all remember Friendly Fire?" Oh yeah, we were just talking about that demon from 84th Ave. I don't know what that reference is, but yeah, we were just talking about Friendly Fire and how I had started there, and like the Street Fighter 4 scene had started there, and then the owners in jail in Arizona now, of all things. Oh man.
So now we're in the Marvel era. That's what I lovingly call it. But that was the era when Cross Tekken came out, KOF 13 came out, a bunch of like Persona 4 Arena I think came out around that time. At the very least, BBCS did.
MK9.
So like MK9, they're like basically the renaissance of fighting games finally caught up. The renaissance of fighting games that Street Fighter 4 started. All the other publishers caught up with it. So I was curious about how the Alaska scene handled going from like one game, Street Fighter 4, splintering out into a bunch of different ones. Were there separate tournaments? Did you guys all gather under one roof? Like, how did you guys tackle that?
Well, luckily we were a small enough scene that I think, we were all willing to try whatever was out because A, we didn't really have, the people to split off into separate tournaments for that. And B, just like, we're all nerds. We all like playing games, different games and stuff. So everyone ended up playing everything.
Yeah,
basically.
pretty much. Like you touched a little bit of everything, and just like I remember Mortal Kombat 9 brackets. Like there was like 4 people in some of them, and we're just like, do we even still run this, guys? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, and of course, there's always the one guy that like plays Soul Calibur. He's like, when are you guys doing Soul Calibur tournaments? We do it, and he doesn't show up, and there's always that guy.
Oh man. So okay, so a little bit of everything. And then I guess it sounds like the attention was split for the competitive scene, so there weren't any huge landmark moments on the mainland then, huh?
Yeah, just because again, like it was kind of a slow time for us, right? Like AE was dying down, and everyone just switched focus to Marvel. And I think everyone's kind of burnt out at that point. I felt like we were still doing tournaments and stuff, but mostly just to hang out, just because we've been doing that weekly already. Sure, and no one was really taking it as serious as we were the last couple of years before that.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely have to agree with that. Yeah, there's definitely like more kind of laid back and hang out. We're just hanging out playing games kind of thing instead of more of like a, we need to get better and we need to work towards this. Like I think usually that would come up like 2 months before Evo. It's like, all right, guys, time to buckle down, right? The rest of the year, it's like we were just kind of chilling and hanging out.
Is it like 2 months is generous too, right? It's usually the week before Evo. We're like, we're gonna stay up every night, don't sleep, just grind because we haven't the rest of the year. So
yeah, I need to learn this matchup.
Came for the exam the night before, huh?
Exactly. Yeah, cramming for Evo.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so did you all travel to any other events besides Evo?
Yeah, we did. A few of us did. I think NorCal regionals. We went to a couple Northwest majors just because it was right over in Seattle.
Nice.
I feel like we went to, and then like a couple of us just like went to like Combo Breaker and stuff, or when it became Combo Breaker. So that's way down the line. Sure. But yeah, usually Evo was our one big, everyone let's go to Vegas, let's get drunk and play fighting games kind of deal.
I was actually, I was just talking about that in our last episode. Like that was, of all the places to meet up with you guys, like, that was the one where everybody was like, yeah, we're going to go to Evo because, why not? Because it's Vegas also.
Yeah. And then at that Northwest Majors, actually, we had my brother, Bo, he doesn't play really, or he used to not play competitively too much. And, but he was just really good. Like he was a casual demon. Right. Yeah. And then he's like, oh, I'll join this tournament, whatever. I'll see how I do. He gets top 8 that tournament. Yeah. I mean, he lost a Filipino champ and this Bison player, Happy Medicine. I don't think he plays anymore.
Oh, I remember that.
I'm familiar with him. Yeah. He was actually, he came to one of the Devastations that I played.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, he always brought that Miku doll.
Yeah.
Yep, that's the guy.
We're talking about the same guy.
Yes, sir. Nice. But yeah, so that was we had a couple relevant showings at some tournaments outside of Evo.
Very cool. Okay. So
those tournaments, like I never went to anything besides Evo when I was because like I said, like I went to 2011 and then I ended up actually moving out of Alaska in 2012, like less than a year after that. And then I think 2012, like I went to Evo because that's the one that was in Caesars. And I think we went there like on a whim. Like me and my wife discussed it, and then like we were just like, you know what, we can go and show up for like Saturday, and then we gotta like come back. Like we weren't even there like a full day.
Yeah, I think that was the year there was a really small group too. It was like you, Mary, and like Ori, Kyle, because that was the same year that Hype KOF 13 finals happened, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that was that year. Yeah.
That was so good.
Yeah,
with Bala. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good one. The Mr. Karate Mirror. I remember that. Okay, so another kind of thing I want to capture for the Alaska scene here is kind of like the pattern of growth. So my the mental image I've got here is that kind of low key for a little bit until Street Fighter 4 comes out, then an explosion of like 30 people at a tournament like that, and then after Neo did really well, that the scene exploded again, right?
Yeah, it kind of lit a fire under everyone's ass, just like, dude, that we can do good too, and then we never like beat Neo in the this other Korean guy consistently.
Yeah.
But you know, at least we were motivated to play. So.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah. And then so I'm guessing during that lull period, like the numbers started dropping then, or did you guys continue to grow? Or
Yeah, it ended up just being like the usual crowd. So I wouldn't say the numbers got low, but there was a good amount of us, but we didn't see any new faces for the longest time. So we kept a consistent like 18 to 24. Would you say, Benny?
Yeah.
For tournament stuff, yeah. So.
Yeah. That sounds about right. When did you guys like? Because I'm trying to think of when did Friendly Fire actually like shut down?
When did he go to jail? So he got caught in like 2013 or 14, and then someone else took it over, but just I guess they didn't have the drug money to keep it going, so shut down shortly after.
Oh, so John, like I think I mentioned that before because like I really had no clue how this guy was making money because like I said, I got into the TO side, right, and I was just like. I was like, hey man, like this is how many people we got here. And he goes, okay, that's cool, whatever, man. Like it would just be like nothing to him. And I'm just like, isn't this like part of like your business? Like you need to keep it running. But in the back of like, but he would just like he didn't even care. He's like, oh yeah, just let me know, man. Just let me know what you're gonna do. And you know, finding that out years later, I was just like, oh, this is why he didn't care. Like that was chump change to him, right? That's probably like lunch.
He like legit didn't even collect venue fees sometimes. We're like, dude, how much do we need to pay? He's like, oh, it's all good. We're like, what?
Yeah, it was like the shadiest shit. Like I had no clue at the time. I was just like, okay, man, thanks. And like we would just do our thing and like not even know what was going on.
Actually, Benny, you remember there was a bullet holes in the door? And we like it was just there one night. We walked, we're like, that's new. Oh, it's
he had a dog in there too. He had a Rottweiler, Balthazar. You know, Rottweiler and all the things to have in his business. Like, and you know, that was probably his sidekick there, just in case somebody came through.
Yeah, and if you find the news article, it's so funny. They did a raid on that place after, and they said like, oh, we found automatic weapons in the ceiling. There's copious amounts of marijuana in the back. And I was like, oh. Well, that's nice.
Yeah. It was wild, man. I just remember reading up about that, and I was like, really, that guy? And I was just like, okay. I was like, I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense in the end, but I was like, damn.
Yeah, thanks for the venue, bro. Like,
wow. Yeah, because so you said that was like 2013 around that time.
I think so, yeah.
And then you guys transitioned over to was that when you guys transitioned over to the Radio Shack?
Yeah, so my family, we owned a Radio Shack for a bit, and they closed pretty early, like 7 or 8 p.m. So we're like, dude, that's actually a perfect just venue we can run stuff. So we started doing Rambats over there, named it Shack Bats. It's pretty cool.
Shack Bats.
Yeah. That's really cool. Actually.
Yeah.
What happened after Radio Shack went under? Did you guys like keep the store open and rebrand, or?
No, we just sold that off right away because, dude, Radio Shack tanked. Like, I don't know if you guys remember the news surrounding Radio Shack that time, but like, people are like, oh, you know, everyone's shopping online now, blah, blah. We just like, we got no customers in there. It was just kind of like a venue-less period for a bit.
I used to work for an e-commerce company, and at a trade show, one of the clients that we had was a Radio Shack. But when the brand tanked, he told me like they wanted to keep it open, but the brand was poison. And so they needed to change everything else out, but still fundamentally remain an electronics store. So that's pretty interesting, actually, how big business is tied to the FGC. It's either drugs or more legitimate means like crypto or NFTs. Never mind. Oh man. Okay, so we've kind of talked through the Street Fighter 4 era and all the games that came out around that time. And I just, for the sake of like measuring sticks, I'm kind of using Street Fighter games as the mark of time here. So how did Street Fighter 5 come out in Alaska? How was it received?
Initially, I mean, everyone was super excited to play it. That first tournament we got, I think we had like 40 people or something, and that was huge for us.
New record, huh? Yeah.
So new record. Yeah, we're like, dude, this is awesome. Like, I hope this game keeps going. And everyone was wearing rose tinted glasses at first. Like, oh, this is the best game ever. Like, I'm glad Street Fighter 4 is dead. Elena can stay in the past. Blah blah blah. Right? Little did we know. Yeah. But it did great here for the first, I want to say, like 4 or 5 months. And we noticed like it was all the old guard that kept placing good in tournaments, right? It was all the usual suspects. So my brother, he was the TO at the time. He decided to do this thing called a bronze bracket, where it's like he had a list of names that weren't allowed to join this bracket. And it was free to enter. And then if you win, you're not allowed to join the next one. And that like took off in popularity. So we had a lot of new faces come and play that. Not a lot of pressure. You don't have to pay money. There's no quote unquote good players you have to fight.
Okay. So did any of those players eventually transition to the higher stakes competitive play?
Yeah, a few of them actually. So I think that was a really good like program that he came up with there. And we had one guy, like he didn't really play fighting games, one of my good friends, and all he played was Smash, definitely a fighting game. But yeah, so he's like, yeah, he's like, oh, it's free, why not? I'll try it. And he ended up like really liking the game, and he started going to Evo with us and stuff after. So.
Nice. Benny, you should think about running a beginner tournament like that.
that's where it came from, the Scrub Cup, man.
Yeah, he called it the Scrub Cup here.
Yeah, I called it the Scrub Cup.
Yeah, we had a few of those in Alaska.
Yeah, we had over here, like some of the people kind of got they were a little upset about the name, and I was just like, it doesn't really matter what I call it. You guys are some people are gonna be upset anyway, so I was just like, I'm sticking with it.
Our first Scrub Cup we had for Street Fighter 4 here. The Scrub Daddy was the first prize.
Yeah,
that was cool. And then we have a guy here that really likes to make barbecue. So for all the other tournaments, he started offering like ribs as a first prize for like other games. He was a big Tekken player.
Yeah, that's our Tekken guy. He's actually in the chat. That's Highlander.
It can be your Highlander. Yeah, what's up, Mike?
Yeah, that's Highlander. I remember I made a meme one day because they had ribs at Radio Shack, and it was like you can't simply walk in the Radio Shack and get ribs, but for the tournament you could. Because he was giving out food for like the top placers.
That's what got me to learn Tekken. So it definitely helped.
Yeah, that's very common in the Arizona scene too. I think we do potlucks and stuff now, and I feel like the way to a lot of people's hearts is through their stomachs for fighting games. But that's how you stomach the salt. You gotta have it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I want to say like Street Fighter 5. So like at that time I was here, and there was a pretty big contingent from Alaska that came down that year too. That was 2016. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think that was our biggest Evo group up to that point. Yeah, we had 32 people travel altogether or something. So
yeah, so at that time it was like what 5,000. That's like the biggest tournament ever at the time for Evo, and like a bunch of us made it out of pools for like the very first time. Because I remember the year before that was like the last year before we only had one person come out of pools. That was CG that year. So we were all like rooting for our one friend that was like left behind, and we were just at the same time I'm sure everybody's just like, man, we all suck, right? We couldn't do well. But Street Fighter 5 came out, and then like I was in the early pool. I made it on my pools, and then like I find out I'm hearing from everybody else. I was keeping up with everybody there, and then the AZ scene too. And it's just like, oh, I made it out of pools. We had that was the year that who's the RD played Daigo after pools, right? Yeah.
And it was funny story about that because like our friend Raphael. He got eliminated earlier, but our friend Ori, he took over for someone else's pools. So he made out of pools twice under two different names. And he's like, guys, I can't play in both because like they're gonna get suspicious if they see me play in both of the winners, So our friend's like, oh, I'll take over. And then he sees like, oh, who's your next match? And he looks, there's a little Japan flag. And he like looks so close. He's like, that Umehara. And then, he was so nervous. It was so funny. But yeah, that was Daigo's first match on stream, right? For that year.
Yeah, that was the one on stream too. Yeah.
Yeah. So like Red Bull followed them, and they had like 1,000 people behind it. And he's just like, oh God. And then he's not even playing under his name.
Yeah, he's like probably worried he's gonna get found out too.
Yeah. So that was a good year.
So yeah, it sounds like because Benny played Daigo too. So it sounds like Alaska and Daigo are just kind of fated and meeting.
Yeah, he's basically an Alaskan at this point. So
yeah, that was also the year because that was the year of Street Fighter 5 where actually like brought the two scenes that I was involved in, Alaska and Arizona, together because we that was the year that it was at that the Las Vegas Convention Center. And across the street with Banky and his brothers, we had rented out this kind of like 2-story kind of like loft kind of thing. And we all just, we were staying there. And I organized it, and amongst the AZ scene, and I had them all come over and say, "Hey, come by." And again, like you said, you're talking about food. Mary was making food. She was making some adobo, so it's just like, "Hey, come by. You guys will run a 5v5." I didn't play on either side. I wasn't choosing sides. I didn't talk to anybody about anything. I was like, "No, like I'm not giving any intel to nobody. Like you guys don't know me. Like I'm just here to spectate." And I let them play. I think was it you? I think it was Banky. It was you, Ori, Zach. And I can't think of the other CG, and then maybe one more.
Yeah, I think CG and RD were the last two.
Yeah, and then I think on the AZ side, John, it was Mocha, Velociraptor. I think it was Nick Going, Driftwood, and there's two others. I want to say it's Marvin and Rock. I think
Was
those were
Mocha
the
the
five.
Kami player?
No, Mocha's the Ken. He was playing Ken.
Oh, okay.
Cammy would either be Ernest or Moss. Probably
Moss.
Ernest.
Actually, let me go look at that. I'm gonna.
Is Moss Moss hates you?
No,
No.
is that his Moss HD?
Yeah, he went to like HD and then like Moss 4K. Like I don't know what he's at now. He might be at 8K or something like that. He might be.
Yeah, it might be different.
I think I used to play against him back in the Street Fighter 4 days, and like my brother would always lose him, and I'd take over the sticks, and I'd pick my character. My brother plays Viper, and then I switch to Ryu, and then I beat him, and then I'd send a message GG, and then he would reply back, "Who's the other guy?"
That's awesome. Actually, yeah, that's something worth talking about here. Is most of my questions have been in terms of the Alaska scene and kind of a macro level, but Banky, as far as like your fighting game career, like what kind of player are you? Like what characters do you play?
So I typically I play
Ryu.
No. Yeah, I typically stick to Shotos or any variation of like Yun or the twins if they're in the game. But I've grown up just like playing Shotos pretty much all my life, or Rushdown. But lately, I'm kind of like a fan of like the mobile grapplers. So kind of like Abel or Manon,
Alex.
even though she's garbage, stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay. Would that like extend to like some of the bigger guys like Abigail or Marissa, or are you more like movement based grappler?
A little more movement based because like I was really interested in playing Marissa when she first came out, but then I tried her. I was like, she's not really my speed. Abigail I just hate because he looks so dumb. I couldn't, get myself to play him, and I lost him all the time. So, yeah, I hated that character. But, yeah, I think my favorite big body was like T-Hawk from Street Fighter 4. So anybody that plays like that.
Oh, okay, yeah, So Lily in 6 then. So you really got a bad.
Yeah, I know, right? And then I play Jamie in 6, so I don't have it much better. But
well, okay. So then in 5, what character do you play in 5 then?
In 5, I started off with Mika.
Mika.
Yeah, and then I had a lot of success with her. And then, but right before Evo, for some reason, I was like, I'm gonna try Nash. He looks cool, and I had no idea the character was good. I was just playing him like I played Ryu because Ryu was, I felt like he didn't play like traditional Ryu in that game in season 1 at least. So I wasn't really a fan of him. I was just trying out everybody else, and then turns out Nash was top tier. Infiltration played him. I was like, sweet, made a good pick. Yeah,
nice. And then just as 5 went on, like, did you end up switching characters? Because Nash got dumpstered pretty quickly.
Yeah. So when Nash was nerfed, I went back to Ryu. I ended up adjusting to that game's Ryu. Found some success with him, and then I played a bit of Monot like at the end of the game's life cycle. Wow. Okay. I never figured out V-Trigger 1, but still had fun with it.
That V-Trigger 2 went underutilized though. So
that was the easy mode V-Trigger 1, I feel like. So.
I would back to go look at those pictures from the AZ versus Alaska thing. So it was Akita, that was the Dawson player. He was like one of the best Street Fighter 5 players that we had here. Mocha Latte, Ken. Who else is in these pictures? It was Ernest. So it was Cammy. Yeah, that's what you remember Cammy. It was Ernest playing Crazy EX. Then there was Marvin. And then actually it looks like I think it would end up being a 7v7 because there's more people here. There's Marvin, there's Velociraptor on the couch, and then there's Rock. And then or maybe it was more. Yeah, that's Rock. And
Was
then I think from your guys' side, I see Ori, I see you, I see Bombi, I see Shinji Young, uh, CG, and who's the other person? There's one more person. Oh, and RD. Yeah, so those I guess it ended up being a 66 because those are all the people that I have sitting on the couch playing each other.
You want to send
Was
me a link to that picture? I'll put it on the stream.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, there's a whole bunch of them.
was Trellix there, Benny?
Yeah, Trellix was there.
I
Yeah,
imagine he was.
yeah, he
Okay.
was there. I don't think he was part of the group because I don't see him sitting. He was just kind of spectating. We had a huge spectator group. We had like Shibble Tim was in there, Too Tall was in there. Yeah, everybody
Tall.
was like, yeah, like everybody was just
Wow.
kind of hanging out in there, and like we were just, they played the matches, and then like we were just kind of just hanging out, eating, and I remember taking shots.
Yeah.
It was a good
Nice.
time.
All right, then I'm gonna ask the potentially awkward question: who won?
I'm pretty sure it was AZ, but because I blame one guy on our team. So we have this guy Shinji 840. He was probably like the second best Street Fighter player here when he was here.
Nice.
Next to Rito Neo. But he has a thing where when he plays team money matches with us, he'll try to hustle. So he'll just play bad during our team money match. He doesn't really give a shit how we do. And he's like, oh, you guys can fend for yourself, whatever. Right? He'll play like his secondaries, whatever. But then after the team money matches, he'll be like, oh, do you guys want a money match? Like anyone, And then he'll pick his mains and then take their money for even more. So yeah, during the Arizona match, he was just like sleeping to the side. We're like, Young, wake the fuck up, dude.
That's awesome.
But yeah, Arizona won.
Okay. This is on the stream now. I actually have a picture of that of Banky front and center actually playing.
Yeah, this is from my Facebook page. So there's
Yeah.
a few photos. If you go back and forth from there, if you want to look at those. But yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. So
yeah, that is hella rock. He's got suspenders and everything. That's great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, it was a good time, man. It's just like I said, like I wasn't gonna choose sides. Like if either one of you guys asked me, if Banky said, "Hey, how does this guy play?" or if Ernest would have been like, "Hey, how does this guy play?" I would have been like, "I'm not telling you guys anything. You guys just play each other. Like I'm not picking sides. I'm not telling anybody anything."
Aw.
I
just cut to an image of some fan art that Kaya made to wish her mother good luck to.
Huh. Yeah, because that was the one and only Evo that Married entered, and yeah, funny enough, that was like first tournament ever, ends up being at Evo, ends up being picked to stream, and of all people, I was just like I was playing at the same time, so I'm focused on my stuff, and I was like, hey John, can you help Mary out if she needs help with anything? And sure enough, she like goes up there and just gets shocked and like doesn't know how to set her buttons or anything, and John's over there like trying to help her out. I was like, man.
Yeah, I remember thinking like, man, Benny's in the zone right now if I'm doing this.
Yeah. I had no time. I was just like, man, I gotta focus. I'm trying to get out of pools this year.
And you did, right? If I recall
correctly. Yeah. I did make it out of pools.
You were playing Dawson, right? That whole
Yep. I was playing Dawson. I had my notes. I think John was actually part of the one that I was like looking at for notes. It said like back to basics, no dumb teleports, movement and slide. And then the very last one, you know what the last one is? The very last one is don't fuck up.
I did tell you that. Don't fuck up.
Yep.
Yeah.
I put that in my little advice. I put that in my notes and I was like looking at that before I played matches and I was just like, all right.
That's a good one to know, yeah.
Thank you. I'm gonna make Benny the butt of the joke here a little bit. So when 5 first came out, we were hot off of like dealing with his Honda. Actually, to go back in time briefly, when Benny first moved to Arizona, he kind of did what he did to you guys when he first came out, and he just like Honda'd everybody. No offense, Benny.
Funny enough, I got second place at the first tournament. I came here.
Yeah.
Again,
like of all the things, I got second place. I came here, nobody knew the hell who I was, and I was just like, they were like talking shit to each other, just like, who's this guy that just beat you? It's like, oh, this guy's from Alaska, and like some of you guys were in the chat. I think Ori was in the chat, and like people were catching on at that tournament because that was at the Hasbats, and like they were just like, oh, we got these people from Alaska in the chat. What are they here for? Like, oh, they're here for him.
So for some catharsis for our Alaska friends here, the Arizona scene, we reacted the exact same way you guys did, which is fuck this character. I'm gonna laugh it out and figure it out, and then he's never gonna do that shit to us again. And by and large, like there was some success in gatekeeping, but Benny, you did keep pace with the scene overall. Like, yeah, you became part of the scene, if anything. So that was super cool. But we all had the same reaction. It was like, fuck Honda.
Yeah, well, I mean, you guys had to deal with SNK too at the time too, and we played completely different. So like, SNK is a very defensive, turtley type of Honda, and you know he'll get his burst damage in, and I was just, I'm going in, like I don't care.
Yep. Exactly. So Street Fighter V rolls around, and then we're all trying to pick characters and whatnot, and Honda's very clearly not in the game because that game took skill. And but he tells us, I'm going to play Dalsum, and all of us are like, the Honda player is going to play Dalsum. So I was curious about how you guys reacted to Benny playing Dalsum when you found that out. Did you have the same kind of incredulous reaction that we did, or were you like, "Oh, that's up his alley"?
Oh no! He posted a clip of him playing Dalsum. I was like, "Does that say AK Grandmaster B? Who posted this clip, man? Like that was the farthest thing from what I thought Benny would pick. I thought it'd be like Mika or someone, but like I don't know."
Yeah, Mika would have been a good pick for him in hindsight. Yeah, but Dalsum was so far from it.
Yeah.
Oh man. But and then here you are to this day, Benny, still playing Dalsum in 6 like an asshole.
No, I'm a Dalsum main now. All right. I told you, like Honda's like that college kid, right? He's unrefined. He's just doing shit. He's just drinking beers and whatever. This is a more refined, older version of Benny, who plays a more sophisticated character. Drinks craft beers.
Teleports.
Oh man.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was my only thing.
Yeah, I was gonna mention. I thought about playing Cammy of all the characters there, but yeah, just when I saw that Dalsum trailer, like it was just something about the way he looked. I was just like, he looks fucking dope. I'm gonna play him. Like I didn't even care.
Dude, even you saying Cammy now, I'm just like, that's a good one. Like I cannot even picture you playing Cammy.
Right.
I talk about it all the time in the Spiral Series Discord about how much I hate Cammy in 6 and how she's like the vanilla of the vanilla, and I was like, why is she so effective at this basic shit?
She's a very good character.
Yeah.
So when I asked about like how 5 was received in Alaska, you mentioned that there were rose tinted glasses, and so I'm curious about like, we all know that 5 was eventually like, it was pretty poorly received once season 2 rolled around. We were all okay with kind of bagging on the game a little bit there. Eventually it got better, but I was curious about like, how did the Alaska scene react to Street Fighter V season 2 and beyond?
Season 2, so we still had a good amount of people playing by then, but at that point, that's when the hate started to come through, right? Like you were saying. So slowly it's like, we play tournaments, but because that was the game that was there,
Yeah,
so
sure.
We all played it. We didn't really enjoy it. Yeah, and then it really just tanked in popularity after season 2. Tournaments started going down to like 8 people, and then so a big tournament for it would be like 15 people.
Yeah, I think at that time that's when I noticed the scene, like when I'd catch the streams in here, and then that's when you guys were really kind of like Tekken was growing at that time, right?
Yeah, because Tekken season 2 was like really good, in comparison to Street Fighter season 2. So everyone kind of hop shipped over to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know Highlander was probably was having a ball at that time because he was the main Tekken guy, like Banky was saying, like he'd have gatherings at his house and invite people. I'm gonna make barbecue. The joke was like, "Hey, do you want Mike's meat in your mouth?" kind of thing. Right? And it's just like, but he would always be hosting for Tekken. Like even if he had tournaments at his house sometimes too, and like we'd be playing Street Fighter, but there'd always be one or two TVs like in the living room or something, just set up for Tekken. And like that's why like when we interviewed Dragon Ninja that one time, like I equated him to Highlander because Highlander didn't care. He's like, I'm gonna be playing Tekken. It doesn't matter, if I'm on my deathbed or whatever. Like this is my game. This is the community that I'm gonna foster. And that's the same thing I saw in Dragon Ninja with Dead or Alive here. Like it was like him and like 4 people, and then eventually it just kept on growing because he kept on hosting events. And it's like, the game's only dead if you don't want to play it. And it's just like those guys' dedication to their particular games is what kept those around.
Yeah, I get you. Okay. How about the pulse on the other games besides Tekken and Street Fighter? Like, were anime games getting popular around that time? Were they still popular, rather?
Anime games, they kind of struggled to get any traction here throughout the years. I think
Okay.
the only one
Yeah,
besides Guilty Gear Strive was probably Blaze Blue at launch, right? Because
yeah, the
that was
first
kind
one,
of the
yeah,
renaissance of fighting games around that time. So everyone's like, oh, Street Fighter's a really cool game. There's more fighting games coming out. Let's try all these ones.
Hmm.
And
yeah.
yeah, Blaze Blue got like good like 10, 15 every
Oh, that's
tournament,
that's
but
the that's
yeah.
the game, like the Sagat player that I was talking about earlier, Derek, from the very
Mhm.
first tournament I came to. That's the game that like eventually like pulled him away from Street Fighter, if I remember, because he was like full on in that. And I think
Yeah,
he played Arakune, right?
he
And I
did.
think I
Yep.
remember I went to like one tournament at the play and trade and played against him, and I was just like, "Fuck this game." I was just like, "He can do anything, right?" Like Arakune and like the first Blaze Blue was like bullshit. So I was just like,
Yep.
"Nah, I'm not playing this. I'm going back to Street Fighter."
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, we've always had like a pretty tiny anime scene here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, but Marvel was big then, right? Was there like crossover between like I guess around that time, like Marvel Infinite and Dragon Ball Fighters and whatnot came out? Were those games pretty
Oh,
popular?
I forgot about that game, Dragon Ball Fighters, because it's like so dead here now.
Oh,
When it first came out, yeah, we had a lot of people playing that, and that's I'd say we got the most new faces out of that game.
okay.
So
Makes
yeah, and
sense.
we'd have a
Dragon
good
Ball.
like exactly good like 16, 24 entrants every time. Marvel Infinite was terrible when that came out here. It was me and two other people playing it.
Ah, bummer.
So yeah, but hey, if you have two people, you have a scene, right? So
Yeah.
um yeah, so nothing besides like Street Fighter, Tekken really grabbed that kind of those kind of numbers.
Okay. You said that until Strive, right? And so it was. I think we're kind of getting to that point in the history, right? Like five probably ran its course, and then
Yeah.
Strive comes out in like what shoot.
2021, I think, right? It was right after COVID.
That sounds about right. Was that
I want to
later?
say.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
Strive
So
release date. Yeah, because I remember we
Yeah,
had a
2021. Yeah,
2021, yep. So
June
yeah,
2021.
we did a goodbye Street Fighter 5 tournament. I tried to, and it had two entrants. So what we did,
oh shit. Okay.
yeah. So I shut it off, and I was like, "What do you guys want to play?" And like five people were like, "You want to play Third Strike?" Okay, we did that instead. So yeah,
And that was around the time because during the pandemic, like Third Strike experienced a huge renaissance with Fightcade. So did that all? I guess it sounds like that echoed in Alaska too, huh?
it wasn't more of like I don't think that affected it, but it was more the fact that like a lot of the old heads happened to be at that tournament, right? So it was just the right place, the right time. Like,
Yeah.
yo, you guys want to play Third Strike? Okay. So,
Fair enough.
Yeah,
Okay.
so the tournaments lately now in Alaska, they've been going on. They've been doing them at Thai Kitchen. That's the other business that your family owns, and then also
mhm.
at Yogurt Works, which is next door. When did you guys
Cool.
transition over there?
From Yoga Works to Thai Kitchen.
Yeah, or just in that whole general area over there.
Um, so I think we have some VODs on Alaska Gamers. We started this tournament series called Sweet and Salty Sundays. And that was right after the Radio Shack era, I think. But we used to do these tournaments called Face Off, where it was basically a fight night. And they weren't really tournaments, or actually they were like exhibition matches.
Ooh.
And
Okay.
yeah, so
Yeah, yeah,
we used to have a lot of grudges in the scene, right? Like,
yeah,
I can definitely beat this guy, blah blah. So one
yeah.
of our guys is like, well, why don't we put money on it?
I
Sure.
know Shonda did that, right?
Sean did
Shonda
it,
was kind
yeah.
of yeah.
So we started this thing called Face Off, and there's a fight card of a bunch of different games. Like, we had some guys playing each other in Tekken, Street Fighter, blah blah blah, and we had to make it, like, oh, minimum like $40, and that was big for us at the time. Yeah, so yeah, and then that was a cool little series.
Yeah, the garbage bag matches.
Oh yeah, garbage bag matches. If you don't want to put up money, you just have to play each other, and then whoever lost has to wear a garbage bag for the rest of the night. That was a lot of fun.
I think we're approaching the era in FGC history where online became like a must, right? And so I actually want to go back in time and like talk about like Alaska as kind of the isolated state that it kind of is, where like for Arizona, it's like I'll go to Evo, I'll drive 3 hours, it'll be fine, it's
Mhm.
really
Mhm.
accessible for me. Um, But for y'all, like if your scene's 18 people at that time, like what, like online seems like it would be the right avenue to find new competition. But given the landscape of shitty netcode at that time, I was curious, like, did you guys tough it out? Did you run online tournaments at all? Like, was that even on the radar?
We tried to, and again, like I said, like it was one of those like down periods of time where everyone was just kind of like, oh, we're playing fighting games for fun at this point. We're not
Sure.
really looking to get better. So a lot of our online tournaments just didn't have a lot of people. We tried to do them weekly, but they just kind of fell off pretty fast. I think our biggest one was right when the pandemic like started picking up. Was it March 2020 or something?
Right.
We did something called COVID Cup, and that was it was like 5 different games online. That got like 60 people to enter.
Oh, nice.
So yeah,
Okay.
we had Smash as part of it, so that drove a lot of the numbers. But
I'm curious actually. Like, so Smash in Arizona, it's pretty similar. Where Smash just is a different demographic, and so they're not
yeah.
really a close part of the scene. But we've had majors that
Mhm.
bundle everybody together, and it actually
Right.
is pretty cool. I'm curious about like how Smash and the traditional fighting game scene coalesced in Alaska.
So actually, Smash back then, it was pretty separate from the FGC, and there was actually kind of like some animosity towards each other back then. Like in the melee days, we're like, oh, like traditional fighters, they look down on us, blah blah. And
Yeah.
meanwhile, we're like, we didn't say anything about you guys, and but because they said that, we're kind of bullies. We're like, well, now we're gonna start saying stuff about you guys, but
Yeah.
we got over it, and yeah, the two scenes they're pretty intertwined nowadays. And a lot of the Smash kids picked up fighting games and vice versa. So yeah, we're actually really tight knit, and we travel to majors together. Even though if it's like a fighting game major, they'll come with us and whatnot. So
Okay. Yeah, like for Arizona, like the big bridge between traditional FGC and Smash was Marvel 3. There were so many Smash players that picked up Marvel 3 from our state,
oh wow,
and that kind of brought us all together. Um,
yeah,
okay,
our game for that was Strive. Actually, a lot of the
Strive,
a
nice.
lot of the Smash Ultimate people, they're like, oh, this looks really fun, blah blah blah. And it's I think that was a good starting point for them because it's an easier anime game. And
Yeah.
we've had a good amount of them stick around to play like regular fighting games now.
Okay. So before I bring up the elephant in the room that is Street Fighter 6, I do want to kind of ask you about some of your personal fighting game career here,
Mhm.
Banky, and that, you know, I got the vibe here that you're both a TO, a community leader, and a player, or so all three of those things. I'm curious about like how would you define your role in the Alaska community?
So I think nowadays I'm definitely more of a TO than anything. So back in the day, since we didn't really have a scene, my brother, he was really big into organizing events, but he wasn't big
Yeah.
into fighting games at the time. We showed him Street Fighter 4. He ended up enjoying that. And he's like, I want to try doing events for this game. And it's always been a dream of mine to like have events for fighting games in Alaska because it's never been a thing before that, right?
Yeah.
So when I was like 15, I started learning how to do that stuff. But at the same time, being teenage me, I want to be the best, blah blah. So like,
You want to do it all, right?
yeah, exactly, yeah. So I was grinding that game hard, and I was like kind of helping out with tournaments and stuff. Benny would host things. I would offer to help do with brackets and stuff. But nowadays, my brother, he's done with fighting games. He's in his Valorant, Overwatch era.
Where the
Yeah,
money's at.
exactly. And yeah, like Benny said, my family owns a restaurant, and they started closing once a week during the pandemic. So that to me, I was like, oh, we have a place to play games, right? So then I came up with the idea to just do a biweekly series, and it's been taken off ever since. And I have a few people helping me, but mainly it's me and my brother. At times, we're just always coming up with new things to try to rejuvenate the scene here.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wait,
That's
so
actually where it's going to be going after this.
Yeah,
okay. The how long has this been going then? The bi-weekly, like how long have you
the
been doing
biweeklies.
this? Yeah.
So it started off with Strive, like we just did. I think it was like the release day of Strive that we did it, and then
Wow.
And then Mondays that happened to work out for everyone. I was like, okay, well, if you guys want to come play some fighting games every couple Mondays, let's do it. And what really like exploded us in popularity was one of our new Street Fighter 6 players. He was a journalist for the Anchorage Daily News.
Oh,
and he's like, Banky, is it cool if I do a piece on the tournament, Monday Night Combat? I was like, yeah, of course. So, he came and interviewed. I thought it was just going to be like a small thing, but like all of Anchorage saw it. Everyone I ran into that I knew, they're like, Banky, I saw your video game thing in the newspaper, man. That's really cool.
that's so
And then,
cool.
we got a lot of like new people on Discord asking like, hey, how do I get to this Thai restaurant place? I want to come play Guilty Gear. I want to come play Street Fighter, blah, blah, blah. So,
Okay. So this was after Street Fighter 6 came out?
the news article, yes. But we started our series with Strive.
Okay. I see. Yeah. Okay.
Mm.
Well, so you guys have been doing this for like consistently for like 3 years now. It sounds like 4.
Yeah.
Almost 3
2.
years.
Almost
Yeah.
3. Yeah, be almost 3.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow.
What
Okay.
number are you guys up to tonight?
Tonight's
which
going to
one
be
is it tonight?
58, I think.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so Street Fighter
like-
6 comes out, right? And then I'm guessing the scene explodes.
Yes. Again, that was another big boom, right? Because everyone it was disappointed with 5, but then 6 looked really good. Ended up being a great game, in my opinion. And yeah, and then we started doing those bronze brackets again, and that got a lot of people to come play.
Yeah.
Yeah,
those have their own kind of hype. It's almost like, just like the Scrub Cup was here, John. I remember getting a lot of the feedback from the people that were just like, they're not normally put in that situation, and they're just like, it was real fun to be like on stream and like, be in those kind of high pressure situations, because it's like, those are the players that, a lot of times go 0-2. Like, I mean, I've gone 0-2 plenty of times myself, but it's just like, those are the people that aren't put in those situations, and to like, be put in that pressure cooker and stuff like that, and have people rooting for you. Like, I've tuned into some of the Monday Night Combat streams, and like, it always seems to be like when I have time, it's at the end of those bronze brackets, and I'm just like, who are these people? Like, I don't know any of them, because I haven't been there in forever, other than like short visits, and it's just like, but it's like super hype, because like everybody's just like, oh man, because like Banky said, like once you win that, like you can't enter that no more, right? So it's kind of like a rite of passage. Like you win that tournament, like, oh, you can't play in the bronze bracket no more. You're one of us, right? Time to play with the big boys. Get your ass handed to you.
And it's so cool to see those new people. They're like, oh, hey, you're gonna be on stream, and then they just like they get nervous, they start shaking, right? And it's like a 20-man local, and they're like, oh no, right? And it's like really cool to see them go through that growth, and because we went through the same thing too.
Yeah. Do you find yourself taking a mentorship role to the new players?
Yeah, actually, because a lot of them are new to fighting games and stuff, and we brought a lot of them to their first Evo this year, sorry, and they really enjoyed it, right? And I was like, hey man, like I just gave them tips. I've done this a few years, and like this is how not to be nervous, blah blah blah, and they all want to keep doing it. So
that's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was really hoping to go to Evo this year. Just things couldn't work out in terms of like time off. Had a lot of things happen in the first half, and then funny enough, like I had 2 weddings to go to this year, and it was both of you guys. Banky's was the first one I went to in September.
Man.
Oh, congratulations, dude!
Yeah, I went to Bank. I was only in Alaska for 2 days. Like that was really the only reason that I went there was in early September, and then John, yours was next, and then like I had I was looking at. I probably wouldn't have gone to your wedding, Banky, if I had gone to Evo, because I ended up having some time off when I looked at everything, and I was just like, you know what, we should just go to the wedding. Like, we don't have anything else planned for this year other than the 2, because John's wedding was here, and then we had another wedding to go to last month that was local. So I was just like, why don't we just go to Alaska? And she's like, what? I was just like, let's just go to the wedding. I was just like, why not? So in some ways, everything kind of worked out in its own different way. Right. And it was great to see everybody that that the 2 days that I was there, 2.5 days or whatever it was. But so that was good times.
It sounds like Banky, he picked you over Daigo.
Yeah, I wouldn't have blamed him if he went to Evo for Daigo. I'm a huge Daigo fan.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm hoping to go back, go to Evo next year. I think that's basically like, I mean, we don't really have any other major plans for next year, so that's pretty much the one that when Mary asked me all the time, like, what do you want to do next year? It's like, I want to go to Evo. Like, it's been so long, and like I mentioned this plenty of times, but one of the main reasons I always went to Evo was to see my friends from Alaska. and it was just like it was kind of just a reunion. Like we'd hang out, those late nights, just finding somebody. Hey, we're gonna go play a 5v5, and like I wasn't really like part of the playing in those 5v5s, but it was just kind of like hanging out with them. Like I remember hanging out with like the San Diego crew one year. Um, yeah, and their suite or whatever. We had Utah, the first Evo I was at. Yeah, it's just I don't know. Becky's been a part of like literally, like I said, like the first step of my part in the journey, and then like milestones like throughout, like whether it was my first Evo, he was at the Evo when I played Daigo, and all stuff like that. Man, it's just like I miss those kind of things, and meeting up with those guys, and then now I've got a whole other side of like the AZ scene where I'm just like, I've got so many people I got to try to keep up with.
Hollywood Benny.
It's too popular, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Street Fighter 6 comes out. We talked about the explosion of the scene, but I'm curious about your opinions of the game as a whole. You mentioned you thought it was a good one.
Yeah, I like it. I think everyone has the same complaints about JP, Ken, blah blah. I don't know. I guess I have a problem with like the skip neutral moves in the game, like Dragon Lash and Superman Punch to a degree, things like that. But it's probably just because I'm getting older and I can't react to shit as much. So I gotta fucking shake my fist at something. But
yeah.
But outside of that, I think it's fun. So.
How'd you feel about DI at first?
I had no problem with it. I was like, dude, just react, bro. It's not that bad.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm eating every DI.
He's still young, John. John be taking advantage of me. He's just like, oh, if he's over 40, I'm gonna DI him. And like, I was getting caught by that shit so much, and I'm just like, damn it, John.
That's what people are saying. If you see the Street Fighter 2 fan badge online, just DI them. They're not gonna react.
That's a good one.
Okay.
All right, so I wanted to kind of put you on the spot here, and I want to see. So, as of currently, right now, like, who are the top 5 Street Fighter 6 players in Alaska? And then who are the top 3 newcomers?
Okay, so top 5. Number 1's kind of debated right now because there's one guy in a different city. His name's Symphony, and I think he's from California, but he lives in Juneau. Right, and we haven't got to play with him offline yet, but he beats us online a lot, and he's taken first in a few of the tournaments that we did.
Okay, I have not heard of them at all. So okay,
yeah, so it's debated between he plays Cammy, super annoying.
Spinning back fist, man, skip back
fist. Yeah, so it's between him and Crucial, who plays Ken. He's kind of just been winning most of the tournaments here. Won all the Rambats and stuff.
So just a little segue. So Crucial actually, like, I forgot what exact place you had at Evo, John, but he was the representative from Alaska that ended up kind of tied for the same place as you did at Evo.
You got 65th. Did you get 65th, John?
Yeah.
Nice, dude. Congrats.
Yeah. So those are the top placers from those scenes from what I remembered. So okay. So you got Symphony, and you said Crucial.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And then next, I'd probably say Blossoms Artie. He plays Marissa. Didn't do too well at Evo this year, but he ran into matchups that he didn't know, I think is what he said. And then next, I would say Orsonite, who plays Blanca and Aki. Traditionally, he's just always been he plays the wacky characters in every game that he plays. So yeah, Beautiful Joe.
Rocky Raccoon.
Rocky Raccoon. Adon. Yeah. Again, yeah. So he's always looking for just like the goofiest people, but like making it work.
Yeah.
And I think that's half the battle is like figuring out those matchups, right? Because like he is a solid player, but also there's the gimmicks you have to worry about. It's the Ori factor.
Sure.
And then fourth, I would say probably me. I have the Mike Ross curse. I keep getting fourth in like every tournament here now. I just need to not play Jamie. And then fifth is actually kind of a toss up. Like there's a lot of people gunning for the fifth spot here. It kind of like changes depending on the tournament.
I think he named, isn't that 5 already? I think he just named
so like between the first place.
Oh, Symphony. Okay, gotcha. So 1A, 1B. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then probably fifth, I would say, is Ryuki. You played against him, right, Benny? The JP player.
JP? Yeah.
So he was a Smash guy before, and then he picked up some anime games, but now he's like getting good at Street Fighter. So that's pretty cool to see. And then Yeah. And then you were asking about newcomers too.
Yeah, in the top 3 newcomers. Like,
Top 3 newcomers. So I would say, yeah, Ryuki's at the top of that list. He's like gotten good at Street Fighter out of nowhere. It's really cool to see. Um, Man, it's hard to name newcomers just because like throughout all these bronze brackets, they all have performed similarly, but they're all growing at the same pace. Right?
right.
So everyone's getting good.
That's awesome.
Uh yeah, I couldn't name any other newcomers just
Alright.
because like yeah, they're all getting
Alright,
really good.
we'll
Man.
leave
I'm
it at
happy.
Ryuki. So funny enough, like I joined one of their online yeah, you guys did like an online thing like
Mhm.
early on in Street Fighter 6. And I didn't really expect anything out of myself, but I did go 0-2, and I lost to RD, who he mentioned, and then I also lost to Ryuki. And I played them again since then, and I've beaten Ryuki. RD is dodging me right now, so I'm waiting to play him again. I saw that he won the last Monday Night Combat, so like that's why I actually have a when I was put the top 5 together, that's what I had in my list. I had Crucial, I had Orsonite, I had you, RD, and then I didn't know who 5 was going to be.
Mhm.
So my list was pretty spot on. But yeah, RD, if you're listening, if you're watching, we need to
Yeah.
play sometime.
And
How's the
then Ben, I don't
connection?
know if you're oh sorry, go John.
How's the connection between Alaska and Phoenix?
It's more than playable.
It's very playable. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have any problems like doing the combos that I need to do. And like, I mean, I drop combos against everybody, so it's like kind of hard to gauge that if it's an Alaska thing or if it's just
Mhm.
me. And usually I'm just gonna put the blame on me because like when I played Banky recently, like I said, like we go pretty even. We actually played like I just had to stop and then like I counted it up afterwards and we were 10-10. And it was just like,
Oh,
and he was hitting combos he was supposed to. I was doing stuff that I was supposed to, and we dropped stuff here and there, pretty normal stuff. So yeah, it's more than playable for me. So
Yeah, that one frame of delay, it's the only reason I lost to Benny. So no.
that's fair.
No,
I
it was a
bought
good
those
set.
teleports.
Yeah.
There are no dumb
Oh.
teleports. There are only good ones.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So, for the record, like ordinarily when we do these biography episodes, we try to go into like your play style and like your
Mhm.
character choice and whatnot. But we have the added benefit / burden of encompassing the history of the entire AKC
Yeah.
at the same time. So I hope that you'll come back and we can do a deeper dive into like some individual player history as well
Mhm.
as any awesome stories for the Alaska scene that we haven't talked about yet. My last question to you is one that we ask pretty much everybody on the show for the first time they're here, and that is, to you, what is footsies? How would you define footsies?
Oh man, I hate that question.
Yes, that's why we ask.
Footsies. So I used to think footsies was literally whiff punishing, right? Anytime I saw somebody get whiff punished, I was like, "Oh, footsies!" Right?
Footsies!
And that was
Yeah.
yeah. But now it's oh man, it's like it's an all-encompassing term for neutral. I would say.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Okay.
it's so hard to define, man. And I'm sure that's why you guys ask it, right?
Yep.
Right?
Everyone's got a different answer, but neutral and whiff punishing is something I've definitely heard before. So
Yeah.
that lines up at least.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, if I had to say one thing, like the first thing that comes to mind is whiff punishing, and that to me
Okay.
is like the hallmark of like, oh, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. So
Nice.
When you think about footsies in your head and you think about a whiff punish, what game comes to mind?
Ryu sticking out low forward and another Ryu sweeping him.
That's exactly okay.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
game?
Yeah.
Which game? Alpha
ST.
4? ST. Okay.
ST.
Yeah, that's what I learned footsies on. I used to call it it was so funny. I thought I was like the one that found out the strategy for like whiff punishing, and
Yeah.
I was like, dude, you got to counter sweep him. Right? My brother's like, what? Yeah.
Counter
And then
sweep.
I found out whiff punishing was an actual thing. So.
I mean, that comes back because we call it counter DI. It's the same principle,
Oh yeah,
right?
right.
Very cool.
Yeah. So like I said, man, like it's been like when I talked to John about bringing somebody on, like we've been talking to a lot of people from AZ, right? Like that's what originally kind of like what our thought was to kind of chronicle the AZ scene, and then it's just like not that we've run out of guests or anything like that, but like a lot of the episodes recently we've kind of just been like talking amongst friends and a lot of familiar faces, that kind of stuff, and I was just like,
Mhm.
what if I bring on one of my friends from Alaska? And when I thought about that, like you were the first person that came to mind, just because, like I said, like you were there from the beginning, like when I started, and then like we've been good friends since then. from whatever to the wedding recently to all that stuff. And yeah, I'm just honored and humbled that you came on, man.
Oh no, I'm so happy that you guys had me on here, and like thank you so much for the opportunity, guys.
Yours, yeah. And thanks. Like, I hope you come back, and to anybody on the Alaska scene that's listening, please come back and let me get like, what do I want to say? Oh, let me know if Benny's talking shit, or if you can advocate for that, or like call him out on it at least, and maybe he's stretching the truth or a little bit or something.
Nah, I keep it pretty real because like eventually, like I'm always the type of person like if I'm lying about some stuff like that, somebody's gonna call me out, like you said, and it's gonna be like, man, that's not what happened. It's like,
It sounds like the Alaska scene would be perfectly willing to do that, right?
Yeah, like if Benny was like, "Oh yeah, I played super solidly at that first tournament I entered," you know,
yeah, no,
I wasn't headbutting or just sumo slamming whatsoever. I'd be like, "You fucking liar!"
I was playing. We were playing on 360. I was playing on 360 pad of all things. I didn't see arcade sticks until I got to that tournament, and I was just like, I need to get one of those. So I was sumo smashing with the freaking analog stick, bro.
Yeah. Chat plaid plugged in there and everything. So good times,
yeah, man.
Yeah.
So before we kind of close things out here, did you have any shout outs or anything? I know you got Monday Night Combat that you're doing tonight.
First off, shout outs to Benny for inviting me to be on here. Thank you so much, man. It was an honor, a lot of fun. John, thank you for having me on. If you guys want to check out twitch.tv/Alaska Gamers, we got Monday Night Combat going on every 2 weeks. We have one tonight at 7 Pacific time, 7 p.m. So check us out there, and we're on YouTube, youtube.com/Alaska Gamers. Just check us out if you guys can. We have a pretty cool scene. So.
If you have a chance, if you have like an electronic version of that article in the Anchorage newspaper, I would love to link that in the episode.
I can pull it up real fast. Actually,
cool. Yeah, I remember when that article came out, and I was just like, oh man, it's so fucking cool. Finally, like something's like big, like it's not just like some small town blogger or something. Like this is like the main news source for a lot of people in Alaska. So yeah, that was awesome.
You want me to throw it in the chat here? Or?
Yeah, that works.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
There you go.
Appreciate it. Well, this has been the Absolute Guard Podcast, episode 67 with John, Benny, and Banky. You can find us on Twitch at twitch.tv/Spiral Series, YouTube at youtube.com/Spiral Series, and on Apple Podcasts and Spotify under Absolute Guard. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and a special thanks to everybody from Alaska who tuned in. I hope this becomes a recurring theme, and we should totally get set sometime if the connection's that good. So
yes, I agree.
I'm down to play it. Cool. Have a good night, guys.
Thank you guys. See ya.